Joining me now, Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, member of the House Financial Services and Judiciary Committees. Congresswoman, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So first, let's start here with the request that we heard from Leader Schumer there and Speaker Pelosi through their statement that they released yesterday. The request for the underlying documentation and all of the findings there. A source tells Evan Perez that 80% of what was gathered as part of this information was during grand jury testimony, and that cannot be released. Another 15% classified. So how much do you expect will be given with the Mueller report if you get the Mueller report?
I expect, and the American people expect that the entire report will be made available transparently to us. If there is sensitive classified information, we can understand how that might not be available to us. But really, the entire report and the underlying evidence must be made available to the American public.
So we heard from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein about, I guess, a month ago or so. He said, there are a lot of reasons, and this is a quote, there are a lot of reasons not to be transparent about what we do in government. Wasn't talking specifically about this, but he understands his position in the national conversation right now. And Attorney General Barr wrote in his letter that he'd be working with Mueller and Rosenstein to determine what to release. Does that characterization from Rosenstein give you pause that you'll get all that you want?
It gives me pause, but hopefully he was not talking specifically about the release of these documents and this report. I think we have to remember something. We have to have great appreciation for the special counsel Mueller and his team for the last 22 months of most professional work observing and showing respect for the rule of law. And we have to, in the Congress and the American public, make sure that that process is completed and transparently shown to the American public. We have a right to know what this president and his campaign and his advisors did in terms of the 2016 election and what involvement Russia had. We have a right to know.
Those around the president have told CNN that there are phrases like "we won" or "the fat lady has sung." We don't have the details or even those principal conclusions yet. Do you expect that's a little premature?
Oh, it's devastatingly disappointing. Imagine what this country has been through in the last 2 years with an utter disregard for our institutions by this administration, an utter disregard for the rule of law, a demonization of folks, people, anybody who is the other, a disregard, a brazen disregard for the emoluments clause. The firing of Comey, which is where this all began. There are no winners here, but the American public and the rule of law will win out when we get the full report.
What are you expecting today on this call and this weekend from the first chapter of disclosure from the Attorney General?
We will be on the call. We've been in touch with our committee all through the night last night, through the evening last night, and we have a conference call, as you said, with the entire committee and team today. So we'll see if, I thought with the letter from Barr, it was interesting to say that he might be in a position this weekend to provide some broad strokes, I guess, of conclusions of the report. I don't think Barr would say that if he didn't actually think he would be doing that, because the letter was very specific and very brief. I think that'll be an important first step, but certainly that will not be enough. We don't want just broad contours of what Mueller and his team found. We need the full report. So I think this is, an important first step. I don't think anybody should jump to any conclusion about what is in the report or any kind of celebratory notion that this is the end of something. This is just the beginning.
Would you like to see, or should the House Judiciary Committee subpoena Bob Mueller to testify?
I'm certain that is going to be up to the chairman of our committee, Jerry Nadler. He has been just masterful in terms of being a professional in what we have to do in terms of oversight. It is our constitutional obligation. If we have a problem getting the contents of this report, I'm sure that will be within the considerations. The chairman has said, if necessary, we will use subpoena power.
But is that something you want to see?
What I want to see is, number one, the report. We draw conclusions from that and see if we actually do need to speak to Mr. Mueller. I have the utmost respect for Mr. Mueller, and I really want to contrast his behavior and the professionalism of his department with what we have suffered in this country under the absolute indecency of this administration. It does give me great hope when you see an investigation like this completed so professionally. So I would enjoy the chance to speak to Mr. Mueller. But number one, we have to see the report.
All right, Congresswoman Dean.